Welcome to another episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your host with the most, Dom, and in this episode we are going to be looking at two spooky films for the October season. Both are dark fantasy comedy horror films. The first is based on a story by Michael McDowell and Larry Wilson, and written by McDowell and Warren Scarron. The second is written by Alfred Goh and Miles Millar. Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice Beetlejuice are directed by Tim Burton. A recently deceased couple contact a sleazy bio-exorcist to scare the house's new inhabitants away. Then, more than 3 decades after the first film, it follows Lydia Dietz, now a mother, struggling to keep her family together in the wake of a loss as the specter Beetlejuice returns to haunt her. Say it with me. Beetlejuice. 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 Let's exorcise some pesky inhabitants and get into this film. After the financial success of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Tim Burton became a bankable director and began working on a script for Batman with Sam Hamm. Although Warner Brothers was willing to finance the script's development, they were hesitant to greenlight the project. Burton felt disheartened by the lack of imagination in the scripts he was receiving, particularly in Hot to Trot. Michael McDowell and Larry Wilson formed a partnership, Pecos Productions, with entertainment attorney Michael Bender, and Beetlejuice was their first original project. After developing the story, McDowell and Wilson decided to co-write the first draft of the screenplay, with Wilson taking only the story by and producer credits. Burton had previously collaborated with McDowell and Wilson, who co-wrote the script for The Jar, an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents that Burton directed. He read their first draft of Beetlejuice, liked it, but wasn't able to get involved at the time due to other projects. The original script was significantly darker and less comedic. It graphically depicted the Maitland's car crash, and which a nod to this remains in the script. And instead of possessing the Dietz and forcing them to dance at dinner, the Maitlands cause a vine-patterned carpet to come alive and ensnare the Dietzes in their chairs. In the first draft, the character of Beetlejuice was envisioned as a winged demon intent on killing the Dietzes rather than scaring them. His motivations included a desire for sex from Lydia instead of marriage, and in this version he could be summoned simply by exhuming him from his grave and saying his name 3 times, allowing him to roam freely and torment the various characters. Another version of the script concluded with the Maitlands, Dietzes, and Otho conducting an exorcism that destroyed Beetlejuice, with the Maitlands transforming into miniature versions of themselves and moving into Adam's model of their home, which they refurbished to resemble their house before the Dietzes arrived. Larry Wilson, co-author and producer, recalled the reaction of a prominent Universal executive to the first draft. He shared, "I won't name names, but I was director of development for Walter Hill at Universal Studios. I had a good relationship with a prominent executive there. I gave him Beetlejuice to read, and on Monday his assistant called, saying he wanted to meet with me. I thought he must have loved it. However, when I met with him, he said, 'What are you doing with your career? This piece of weirdness, this is what you're going to put out into the world? You've got great taste in material. Why squander it on this?' Shortly after, we sold it to the Geffen Company." David Scarron's rewrite shifted the film's tone, eliminating the graphic details of the Maitland's deaths and further developing the concept of the afterlife as a complex bureaucracy. He added new limbos that Barbara and Adam encountered each time they leave home, including a clock world and a sandworm world on Saturn's moon, Titan. Scarron also introduced a musical leitmotif to accompany the Maitland's ghostly antics, originally envisioning R&B tunes instead of Harry Belafonte, and intended to conclude with Lydia dancing to When a Man Loves a Woman. Scaren's draft retained some of Beetlejuice's sinister traits, but toned him down to be a troublesome pervert rather than an overtly murderous, like he was portrayed before. His true form was that of a Middle Eastern man, with much of his dialogue in African American vernacular English, which would have been weird. This version concluded with the Dietzes returning to New York, leaving Lydia with the Maitlands, who, with her help, transformed their home's exterior into a stereotypical haunted house while restoring the interior. Retrospectively, McDowell noted the connection audiences made between the film's title and the star, Beetlejuice, the actual star. And that's one funny thing is that, like, why is it spelled Beetlejuice, like Beetle, like we have like a beetle and juice, like you drink juice, but like in a movie it's Beetlejuice, like the star. It's because the studio thought that it would be hard for audiences to understand that Beetlejuice, like the way it's spelled, like the star, is pronounced Beetlejuice. So they let them do it for the movie poster and for like the movie to spell it Beetlejuice, but the way you're supposed to spell his name like is like in the movie is like Beetlejuice. Burton initially envisioned Sammy Davis Jr. for the role of Beetlejuice. Other candidates included Dudley Moore and Sam Kinison, but Geffen suggested Michael Keaton. Though Burton was unfamiliar with Keaton's work, he quickly became convinced. Several actresses auditioned for Lydia Dietz, including Sarah Jessica Parker, Brooke Shields, and Molly Ringwald, among others. Winona Ryder was ultimately cast after Burton saw her in Lucas. Angelica Houston was originally set to play Delia Dietz, but dropped out due to illness. And Catherine O'Hara quickly took over. Burton later mentioned that it took time to convince other cast members to join, as they were unsure about the weird script. He believed O'Hara and Jones would make a cute couple, and Lydia Dietz was notably characterized with the look of and persona of the goth subculture. Beetlejuice had a budget of $15 million, with just $1 million allocated for visual effects. Burton intended to replicate the style of the B-movies he loved as a child, aiming for effects that looked cheap and intentionally fake. He initially wanted Anton Furst as production designer, after being inspired with his work on The Company of Wolves and Full Metal Jacket, but Furst was committed to High Spirits, a decision he later regretted. Burton then hired Bo Welch, a future collaborator on Edward Scissorhands and Batman Returns, which kind of give that same look and feel to like a Tim Burton film, I would say. The test screenings received positive feedback, prompting Burton to film an epilogue featuring Beetlejuice foolishly angering a witch doctor. Warner Brothers disliked the title Beetlejuice, preferring House Ghosts or Ghost House, and as a joke, Burton suggested Scared Sheetless, which horrified him when the studio actually considered it. And while the setting is in the fictional town of Winter River, Connecticut, all outdoor scenes were filmed in East Corneth, Vermont, with exterior shot at the Culver Studios in Culver City, California. Principal photography took place from March 11th to June 11th, 1987. And now, let's get into Beetlejuice.
Adam and Barbara are recently deceased. They were happy to haunt in peace until the new residents moved in. To rid themselves of these pesky pests, they call on the ghost world's leading bio-exorcist.
It's showtime. Attention, Kmart shoppers. I'm back. You want somebody out of the house? I want to get somebody out here. But I want out. For good.
You two have really screwed up.
I want Beetlejuice out of the picture. You guys really are dead.
Nightshade's promise. Spirits drive. To the living, let now the dead,
Shall we?
come alive. That is why I won't do 2 shows a night anymore, babe. I won't.
In Winter River, Connecticut, Adam and Barbara Maitland, who are played by Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis respectively, are spending their vacation decorating their large country home that local real estate agent Jane Butterfield constantly persists them to sell. As a hobby, Adam is building a scale model of the town in the attic. While driving home from town, the Maitland's car plunges off of a bridge and into the river. Barbara and Adam return home, but are unable to recall how they got there. When attempting to leave the house, Adam enters an otherworldly desert-like landscape populated by enormous sandworms. The encounter lasts mere seconds for him, but after Barbara rescues him, she claims that he's gone for 2 hours. After discovering a handbook for the recently deceased and noticing they have no reflections in a mirror, the couple realizes that they drowned in the river and are ghosts. The house is sold to New York real estate developer Charles Dietz and his second wife, Delia, a talentless sculptor. Charles' teenage goth daughter, Lydia, lives with them. Under the guidance of interior designer Otho, Delia begins renovating the house with a new wave of aesthetic of postmodern art. They are played by Jeffrey Jones, Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, and Glenn Shaddix, respectively. While consulting the handbook on how to eject the Dietzes, the Maitlands see an advertisement for Beetlejuice. Following the handbook's guidelines, they travel to an otherworldly waiting room filled with other distressed souls. After navigating the afterlife's complex structure of bureaucracy, the Maitlands return home only to realize 2 months have passed and the house has been completely redesigned. Their caseworker, Juno, played by Sylvia Sidney, arrives and discloses the Maitlands must remain in their house for 125 years before moving on. Juno discourages them from contacting Beetlejuice, who is her former assistant and now freelances as a bio-exorcist. To drive out the Dietzes, Beetlejuice can only be summoned by uttering his name 3 times. Juno recommends that the Maitlands haunt the Dietzes themselves. Adam and Barbara are invisible to Charles and Delia, which thwarts their attempts. Lydia, however, can see them, which she attributes to her peculiar nature. The Maitlands invoke Beetlejuice, who is played by Michael Keaton, and are transported into the model. Beetlejuice's crude and morbid demeanor offends them, and they exit the model. The Maitlands possess Charles, Delia, and their wealthy friends during a dinner party. Unexpectedly, their antics only amuse the group, inspiring Charles to pitch a supernatural theme park to investor Maxie Dean, played by Robert Goulet. The Dietzes uncover the town model in the attic, where Otho finds the Maitland's handbook. Beetlejuice transforms into a giant snake and terrorizes the Dietzes before Barbara banishes him back to the town model. Juno calls Barbara and Adam back to the afterlife office and berates them for releasing Beetlejuice. Meanwhile, Lydia, depressed and blaming the Maitlands for Beetlejuice's attack, writes a suicide note. Lydia discovers Beetlejuice inside the model. She almost summons him in exchange for passage to the afterlife, but the Maitlands return and stop her. Maxie Dean arrives and demands evidence of paranormal occurrences, but the Maitlands refuse to manifest again. Otho uses the handbook and conducts what he believes to be a seance. He summons Adam and Barbara by using their wedding clothes, but they begin aging and decaying rapidly as Otho has mistakenly performed an exorcism. A horrified Lydia invokes Beetlejuice, who agrees to help if she will marry him so he can remain permanently in the mortal world. He saves the Maitlands, drives away Otho and the Deans, then prepares to wed Lydia. The Maitlands attempt to banish Beetlejuice, who teleports Adam to the town model and Barbara to the desert land. Barbara rides back into the house on a sandworm, which devours Beetlejuice. The Dietzes and the Maitlands agree to harmoniously live together, and the Maitlands are close to Lydia. Beetlejuice is seen sitting in the afterlife waiting room, waiting his turn to see a caseworker. When he attempts to steal a numbered ticket from a witch doctor's ghost, his head is shrunk. Now let us move on to some trivia about the film Beetlejuice and learn some things about the behind the scenes, the production, and the actors. Michael Keaton came up with much of the character's look himself. Keaton told the makeup department he wanted mold on his face and his hair to look as if he'd stuck his finger in an electric socket. And he requested that the wardrobe department send him clothes from all different time periods. And honestly, I think this is a fabulous idea. I really like when actors bring on their own ideas, especially for like the characters that they're going to play. Like when they're getting into these mindsets and they're getting into the like this idea of like they're going to play this character and what would the character do? What would the character be? Like their motivations, having them like design like the way that the character is going to look or help like pick that out. I think honestly, that helps out a lot. And I've had that help like on set too. Like especially when, like I said, like when they're the ones who are like, I think I got into this character's head. I think I know what they want. I think I know what they're gonna do. That's when, you know, they'd be like good to help out and like good to be like, let me help with the design. The film was the first DVD sent out by Netflix in 1998. Yes, kiddos out there, Netflix wasn't always something you streamed on an app or on like the computer, on your gaming device, on your phone. It was DVDs that got sent through the mail. Yeah, through the mail. That's how I used to watch Netflix. I used to have to. I paid extra too to get Blu-rays because I had a PS3, and so I would get. I mean, obviously not back then, not 1998, because Netflix wasn't really a big company in that's when it started, or like that's around when it started in 1998, and so it didn't really become very popular until around the late, the late 2000s, because that's and I remember they wanted to buy out Blockbuster, and Blockbuster was like. No, we're never going out of business, guys. And what ended up happening, they went out of business. But Netflix, you know, I remember like the first, like what got them more popular was that they were like, hey, we're gonna start offering, like you can play, or you could get a DVD and you could wait for the DVD to get sent out, watch it, send it back, or certain limited movies you could watch right now and you could stream it, but back then like streaming was terrible. Like I remember when you'd have to watch like if you watch like YouTube or like Netflix or even like Hulu, I remember sometimes you have to sit there and let it you'd have to let it just like down, like not kind of like download, but like buffer. You'd have to let it sit there, you know, download a little bit or buffer, or you know what I mean, like, or I guess you might not know what I mean, but like, you know, like when the internet kind of goes out or like kind of drops and you have to sit there and wait for it to like do the little circle. We had to literally, I remember there were times where like I wanted to watch something, I'd have to play it, pause it, let it download a little bit. So then I could watch it, because then as it was going, it would download a little bit at a time, a little bit ahead of what I was watching. I mean, now you don't even have to worry. You basically don't even have to worry about that anymore. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it, like how like far we've come, and just like, yeah, I mean, I remember like constantly getting these like you would get. I think you paid for I think it was like I got 2 DVDs, but then I paid extra for Blu-ray, so I could get up to, I think I could get a DVD and a Blu-ray, or like 2 Blu-rays or 2 DVDs, and man, yeah, they would send it through the mail. You'd open it up, you'd watch it, you put it back in a little packaging, and you'd send it back, and that's how you watch movies. I mean, before that though, like you physically, it was kind of like Redbox, although the Redbox wasn't around back then. You physically have to go to a store like a Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, go like looking around and then be like, okay, I wanted this. And if they had it, they had it. If they didn't have it, you'd have to wait to watch it, which is crazy. I still love the idea of renting though. I wish it would come back. I get that you can watch some things on like Netflix at the tip of your fingers, but it's still like the idea of like walking around a store, like looking at all the different choices, and there's a lot of choices. But that idea, just like that, is just, I guess maybe it's nostalgic to me. According to producer Larry Wilson, the original ending was significantly darker. The film would have ended with Lydia dying in a fire and joining her friends in the afterlife. They changed it after considering the message it would send to young people is that death is like it would be a happy ending. And I don't think, like that's probably for the best that they changed it. You know, the ending we got is pretty good anyways, you know, like where they stop them from marrying Lydia, you know, the Maitlands kind of like took over parenting for her a little bit, or like kind of co-parent her a little bit. And I don't know, I mean, like I like it, like when it ends with a dance number, Beetlejuice gets this kind of comeuppance again where his head shrunk. It's pretty funny, you know. I like the ending a lot better. In one of the original scripts, Adam and Barbara's deaths were rather graphic. When they crashed on the bridge, Barbara's arm ended up getting crushed when the door on her side slammed into her arm. Then, when their car plunged into the lake, they were screaming for help as they were gradually drowning. Just imagine that, like watching that in the opening of the film. When their spirits return to their house, Barbara resets her broken arm. Though the way the Maitlands' deaths were presented was mostly toned down to be less gruesome and grim for the film, the dialogue where Adam asks Barbara, "How's your arm?" and her response is, "I don't know, it feels frozen," is taken from the original script. This implies that Barbara's arm was damaged in some way in the fatal accident in the film. People who have watched the film have always been rightfully confused by this bit of dialogue because the film never showed anything gruesome regarding the Maitlands' death. Although I think it fits. I think it doesn't call. I mean, it does kind of call to itself when you're watching the film because you're like, oh, but I think it's not enough to be like just super distracting. I think it's enough to be like, oh yeah, like something happened when they crashed on that bridge, that like something happened to her arm. Like, I think that's why they left it, is because it was enough of like a, you know, it wasn't too distracting, it wasn't too crazy, it wasn't too like wait, what happened? And I think I think it was enough of a, oh, how's your arm? And I don't know, it feels frozen. You know, just kind of maybe like you could assume, because you're not sure if they're like, at that point they're not sure that they're dead, and like we don't know that they're dead too. And at that point it could just be like, oh, like maybe her arm got damaged, like hurt while like they were getting out of the car or something. I don't know. I never like dwelled on that too much. But I did know that was what was in the original, one of the original scripts before. So I mean, it kind of makes sense to kind of leave over some dialogue, some things from like previous scripts. Like when you're rewriting, sometimes, you know, something sounds really good, but it just doesn't fit to what's going on. But like it's good to just have it there. I don't know. So sometimes that happens. When Adam tries to leave the house to retrace his and Barbara's steps, he finds himself on Saturn. Before Barbara pulls him back to the house, he catches a glimpse of a giant sandworm swimming towards him. When the scene was originally shot, instead of Saturn and being targeted by a sandworm, Adam found himself in a black void, and being chased by giant electrical gears. The scene lasts several seconds longer than the final cut of the scene. This version of the scene is a black and white work print and is one of several alternate and deleted black and white work print scenes. Notably, the few shots of the original scene where Alec Baldwin is looking and reacting to a giant gear rolling towards him and being dragged backwards to safety made it into the theatrical cut, with the background of those shots replaced with Saturn and parts of with the swimming sandworm. The original version of the scene was derived from one of the original versions of the script that involved Adam finding himself in a black void with giant clocks. And I honestly, like, that to me more stood out was like, why do they get transported to like the moon Saturn, the Titan or whatever I think it is supposed to be, and there's sandworms out there? That to me, I always was like, wait, why? Why does that happen when you leave? I like the idea though, like if they had stuck with it, it was like, oh, like different things happen when you go outside of your quote unquote like haunting area. But I mean, that's just me. I would have loved to just see a little bit more. I'm always like fascinated, like when they don't explain too much in the world. It's never that I'm like, oh, I need it. It's just I always love to like when they start getting into it more, like with like the sequels and stuff. But let's just move on from now. Following the success of Beetlejuice, the Geffen Film Company quickly fast-tracked a sequel. In 1990, 2 sequel scripts were commissioned. The first, titled Beetlejuice in Love, was written by Warren Scarron, who had heavily reworked the original film script. In the sequel, Beetlejuice meets Leo, who tragically falls to his death while proposing to his girlfriend, Julia, atop the Eiffel Tower. After Leo enters the afterlife, Beetlejuice escapes to pursue Julia. Unfortunately, Scarron died shortly after submitting his first draft. That same year, Tim Burton hired Jonathan Gems to write another potential sequel titled Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Gems explained that Burton envisioned a comedic contrast between a surfing backdrop and elements of German expressionism, which he found amusingly mismatched. The story revolved around the Dietz family moving to Hawaii, where Charles is developing a resort. They soon discover that his project is built on the burial ground of an ancient Hawaiian kahuna, whose spirit returns to cause chaos. Beetlejuice then becomes a hero by winning a surf contest using magic. Both Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder were interested in the project, but stipulated that Burton must direct. However, both became occupied with Batman Returns. Not Winona Ryder, but Michael Keaton and Tim Burton. By early 1991, Burton remained interested in Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. After being impressed with Daniel Waters' work on Heathers, he approached him for a rewrite. Ultimately, however, he signed Waters to write the script for Batman Returns. In August 1993, producer David Geffen hired Pamela Norris to revise the script. In 1996, Warner Brothers approached Kevin Smith for a rewrite, but he declined, humorously questioning whether a sequel was necessary. Didn't we say all we needed to say in the first Beetlejuice? Must we go tropical? That was from Kevin Smith. In March 1997, Jem stated, "The Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian script is still owned by the Geffen Company and will likely never be made. Winona is too old for the role, and they'd have to completely recast it." Over the years, Burton considered various sequel ideas, stating in 2024, "We talked about lots of different things. That was early on when we were brainstorming ideas like Beetlejuice in the Haunted Mansion, Beetlejuice Goes West, etc. But all those scenarios set in Hawaii, the Wild West, or Paris were ultimately scrapped. In September 2011, Warner Brothers hired Seth Grahame-Smith, who had worked with Burton on Dark Shadows and Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, to write and produce a sequel. Grahame-Smith aimed to create a story that was genuinely worthy of a sequel rather than a mere cash grab. He was adamant that Keaton would return and insist that Warner Brothers not recast the role. Though Burton and Keaton had not officially signed on, they both expressed interest if the script met their expectations. Grahame-Smith met with Keaton in February 2012, noting it's a priority for Warner Brothers, and Tim Michael's been wanting to do this for 20 years. In November 2013, when Ryder hinted at a potential return for the sequel, stating, "I'm kind of sworn to secrecy, but it sounds like it might be happening. It's 27 years later. I love Lydia Dietz so much. She was a huge part of me, and I'd be really interested in what she's doing now." Ryder confirmed she would only consider a sequel if Burton and Keaton were involved. In December 2014, Burton expressed his desire to work with Keaton again, saying, "There's only one Beetlejuice. We're working on a script, and I think it's probably closer than ever." In January 2015, Grahame-Smith announced to Entertainment Weekly that the script was finished and that filming for Beetlejuice 2 was expected to start at the end of the year, with both Keaton and Ryder returning to their roles. While negotiating her role as Joyce Byers in Stranger Things in mid-2015, Ryder requested a break from the series should the Beetlejuice sequel be greenlit, and she and Burton had been discussing the project since 2000. The Duffer Brothers agreed. In August 2015, Ryder confirmed on Late Night with Seth Meyers that she would reprise her role in the sequel. In May 2016, Burton expressed his desire to do the project under the right circumstances, noting it's not a movie that cries out for a sequel. It's not the Beetlejuice trilogy. He emphasized that if the right elements were in place, he would love to work on it. In October 2017, I might mess this up. Vukadinovich was hired to rewrite the script, but by April 2019, Warner Brothers announced that the sequel had been shelved. In February 2022, a sequel was announced again, this time produced by Brad Pitt's Plan B Entertainment alongside Warner Brothers. Burton initially stated he was not involved, but later clarified that nothing is out of the question. Ultimately, he returned as the film's director, aiming to simplify the story and focus on good people, actors, and puppets. He reflected on Lydia Dietz's life post-film, envisioning her as a effed-up adult who hosts a medium-related show titled Ghost House, struggling with a daughter who hates her. Burton felt this project was personal, portraying a weird family in a relatable, emotional story spanning 3 generations. Burton and Keaton agreed to limit the use of excessive technology, aiming for a handmade feel. The plot was likened to the psychedelic boat ride in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, featuring very big swings of unhinged phantasmagoria. Keaton found the sequel story to be stronger than the original, fostering a deep connection to the audience, while Ryder expressed confidence that the film would exceed her high expectations. In March 2023, Variety reported that Jenna Ortega, who previously worked with Burton on the 2022 Netflix series Wednesday, was in talks to play Astrid Dietz, Lydia's daughter. Ortega and Ryder bonded during their collaboration, sharing a cinephile passion and making the experience special. In May, Danny Elfman announced he would return to compose the sequel score, and it was confirmed that Ortega would star. The script was written by Wednesday creators Alfred Goh and Miles Millar. Justin Theroux, Bern Gorman, Arthur Conti, Philip E. Cates, and Willem Dafoe all joined the cast in undisclosed roles, with Dafoe playing an afterlife officer. He later revealed that his character, a former B-movie action star, became a detective in the afterlife. Catherine O'Hara would reprise her role as Delia Dietz, and Monica Bellucci joined the cast as Beetlejuice's wife, Dolores. Initially, Go had no specific actor in mind for Dolores' first victim, a deceased janitor, but Burton called Danny DeVito, who accepted the role. Colleen Atwood, a frequent Burton collaborator, was announced as the costume designer. Atwood disclosed that Beetlejuice's iconic striped suit would return, although Keaton preferred a burgundy tuxedo. O'Hara later confirmed that Harry Belafonte's 1995 song, Deo, the Banana Boat song, would feature in the film, similar to the first installment. The wedding sequence would include a music number led by Beetlejuice, though the song was undecided until Burton suggested MacArthur Park, which Go felt was a fittingly crazy, weird, insane choice for the film's conclusion. Keaton emphasized that Beetlejuice would have limited screen time, similar to the first film, saying, "You can't load it up with Beetlejuice, that'll kill it. He's more part of the storyline this time than he was before." So, let's get into it.
Here's a preview. Be warned, it's intense.
I can't believe Grandpa's dead.
Death is hard.
Yeah, sometimes I think life is harder.
When I was a teenager, a trickster demon terrorized our entire family and tried to force me to marry him. I believed he was gone forever until you found this in the attic.
Ew. Who's Beetlejuice?
Don't ever say that name.
Beetlejuice.
No, Astrid! I am serious! If you say his name 3 times, he will appear.
Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose. I'm gonna make you so happy.
The living. The dead. Can they coexist? That's what we're here to find out.
Where's Beetlejuice?
Where's Beetlejuice?
Beetlejuice!
Feel free to express yourselves. Don't be afraid.
You're a figment of my imagination.
Really? Is this a figment of your imagination?
In 2024, Lydia Deetz, played again by Winona Ryder, hosts the supernatural TV talk show Ghost House. She has been estranged from her daughter Astrid, played by Jenna Ortega, since Lydia's former husband and Astrid's father Richard, played by Santiago Cabrera, died while in the Amazons. While taping an episode, Lydia hallucinates seeing Beetlejuice, the ghost who tried to marry her 36 years earlier, in the audience. Shortly after, Lydia's stepmother, Delia, still played by Catherine O'Hara, informs Lydia that her father, Charles, has died in a gruesome accident. They and Astrid travel to Winter River, Connecticut, for Charles' funeral. At the wake, Rory, Lydia's boyfriend and producer, who is played by Justin Theroux, pressures her to marry him on Halloween. She hesitantly agrees. Meanwhile, Astrid meets a local boy named Jeremy Fraser, played by Arthur Conti, who invites her to spend Halloween with him. In the afterlife, Beetlejuice, who is still played by Michael Keaton, oversees an office of bio-exorcists, assisted by Bob, played by Nick Kellington, an anxious, shrunken-headed ghost. Beetlejuice is still obsessed with Lydia. Former actor-turned-ghost detective Wolf Jackson, played by Willem Dafoe, warns Beetlejuice that his former wife, Dolores, played by Monica Bellucci, has escaped captivity and gone on a murderous spree, draining the souls of the dead, searching for him. The couple met during the Black Plague in Italy, but Dolores was a cult member who poisoned Beetlejuice as part of an immortality ritual. He murdered her before succumbing to the poison. Astrid discovers she has inherited her mother's psychic abilities and realizes Jeremy is a ghost. He asks her to accompany him to the afterlife to help regain his life. In exchange, she can meet her father's spirit. Meanwhile, Lydia learns from a realtor that Jeremy murdered his parents 23 years earlier and died when the police tried to arrest him. Lydia reluctantly summons Beetlejuice and signs a marriage contract in exchange for him taking her to the afterlife to save Astrid. Beetlejuice blows open a hole between the worlds of the living and the dead. He disguises Bob as himself as a decoy. Wolf discovers Beetlejuice has brought a living person into the afterlife and launches a manhunt for him, capturing the disguised Bob. Dolores meets Bob at the police station while continuing her search for Beetlejuice and drains Bob's soul. As Beetlejuice and Lydia search for Astrid, Jeremy escorts her through the afterlife's bureaucracy. He admits to tricking Astrid into exchanging her life for his. Astrid is taken to the Soul Train to be sent to the great beyond, but her father, Richard, spots and follows her. Lydia pulls Astrid off the Soul Train, and they escape through a portal to Saturn's moon, Titan, where Richard saves them from a sandworm, while Beetlejuice sends Jeremy to hell. Richard shows Lydia and Astrid how to return to the living world. Meanwhile, during a mourning ceremony for Charles, Delia is bitten by 2 venomous asps and that she was assured were defanged. She arrives in the afterlife and summons Beetlejuice to help find Charles. He agrees that Delia will help him find Lydia. Lydia and Astrid arrive at the church for Lydia and Rory's wedding. Beetlejuice appears with Delia and interrupts the ceremony. Beetlejuice uses a truth serum that forces Rory to admit he never believed in Lydia's abilities until now and only uses her for her money. Beetlejuice prepares to marry Lydia when Dolores arrives seeking revenge. Wolf also arrives, but Beetlejuice freezes him and his comrades to avoid arrest and continues the wedding. Astrid opens a portal to summon a sandworm from Saturn's moon, Titan, and Beetlejuice, which leads it to devour Dolores and Rory. Astrid reveals that because Beetlejuice illegally brought Lydia into the afterlife, their marriage contract is voided. Lydia recites Beetlejuice's name 3 times and banishes him back to the afterlife. Delia returns to the afterlife with Wolf, and she is reunited with Charles' spirit as he is about to board the Soul Train to the great beyond. As everything returns to normal, Lydia ends her ghost house show to spend more time with Astrid. However, Lydia has reoccurring nightmares about Beetlejuice, knowing that he will never give up his obsession for her. Now let's move on to some trivia about the film Beetlejuice Beetlejuice and learn some things about the behind the scenes for that film, about the production, about the actors. Michael Keaton said making the sequel is more fun than the original and also said he'd be down for another sequel due to how much fun he's had. I do those films every year. And honestly, like, if they did like either like a mini series or like a little like a one-off like season like of Beetlejuice, honestly, I think right now would be perfect. Especially with Tim Burton doing like Wednesday. I think if he did another one where it was like Beetlejuice, like the Adventures and the Adventures of Beetlejuice, right? And I mean, you don't have to do like maybe you don't have to do Jenna Ortega. I think you could do like Winona Ryder, Lydia. You could maybe bring in another character or something. Maybe the Janeses, the one that's what is it? It's Jane Jr. You could do something like that, maybe, like their adventures and stuff. Like, I think it'd be pretty funny if you did something a little bit more. I think if they do a third one, I would be there for it too. I think they're gonna want to do like what they did with this one, with this sequel, where they're gonna wait for, like, if they do a third one, wait for a script that comes that is actually like, yeah, see, this is right. This seems like the right fit for us and everything. So who knows? Maybe we will see. We will see what comes in the future. Maybe we won't get a sequel for another 30 years, and they'll be too old to be. It'll just be Beetlejuice in a wheelchair or something. I don't know. But yeah, that'd be pretty fun. The decision to tell Beetlejuice's origin story in Italian was Tim Burton's, as he was inspired by the works of Federico Fellini. Burton said Beetlejuice's origin story was like the prologue to a Fellini movie, so it had to be told in black and white and Italian, and with an overall visual style like those in Fellini's movies. In addition to that, Monica Bellucci is Italian, obviously, so it was fitting that Dolores was also Italian. And I'm pretty sure she dubbed her own lines for the Italian version of Beetlejuice, which is, you know, good on her. But honestly, I love that we got like his backstory, and I love that he's just like a grave robber, and then he meets this stunningly beautiful woman, and then it turns out she's just using him to gain eternal life, and then he ends up killing her, and he dies, and then that's the story of Beetlejuice, is like how he died. Although maybe I'd like to see more of like how he came to be a bio-exorcist, or like maybe his time with Juno, like all that stuff. Like I feel like you could fill in like with something. But yeah, I totally love the way that they told it, where he was like speaking Italian, and like it's just like black and white, yeah, like a Fellini film. So it's so good. I love this so much. That sequence was just hilarious. I loved it so much. So Jeffrey Jones was not asked to reprise his role as Charles Dietz due to controversies related to his status as a sex offender. I wonder what controversies those are. He's a pedophile. Disgusting. His character was instead explained to have been killed off prior to the events of the film, with Jones' likeness being depicted through archive footage and stop-motion animation. His funeral is fittingly accompanied by Deo, the Banana Boat song, which was famously used in Beetlejuice, the first Beetlejuice, obviously. Although, and I'll get into when I get into my final thoughts about this film, I think that's more than he deserved. Like, even like the showing him getting killed with the stop motion, I think that's way more than he deserved. Somebody that like, this is, you ruined your whole career, you ruined your whole, like everything about like the, not nostalgia of it, but like because he's also from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Mr. Rooney. Like, it's like, whoa, you just like tainted all these like movie, like, I mean, that's what we get with a lot of stars retrospectively, is like you go back and you're like, man, this is uncomfortable because like Kevin Spacey's in it and he's a monster, and that's before he was we found out that he was a terrible person. But yeah, no, I'll get into it in my final thoughts. The denouement features a extended reference to the ending of Carrie, complete with a surprise jump scare. It even uses the same soundtrack, which I didn't even pick up on. Meanwhile, Dream Astrid gives birth to a demonic baby version of Beetlejuice, who then massacres the delivery team in a reference to It's Alive. And honestly, like, I thought we were like just getting like, oh, okay, cool. She spends time with like Astrid, and like, oh, we get to. I think I knew at a certain point when like she's having a baby. That's when I was like, okay, this has to be like some kind of dream or something. And then the little baby Beetlejuice comes out, and it's ridiculous. It's so because we do get to see the little baby Beetlejuice earlier, and it's disgusting. Oh man, I liked that. I thought that was pretty funny. I didn't, like I said, at first I didn't see it coming as a dream, and then like when it gets to a certain point where it's just like, okay, this is just an extended dream sequence, isn't it? And I feel like a lot of people would have gone away with like, wait, so the whole thing was a dream? It's like, no, you fucking idiots. It's from a certain point in the film where I would say that's when, I think, just like post them leaving the church, that's where the dream, quote unquote, dream starts. It was Catherine O'Hara's idea for Delia's death. Co-writers Alfred Goh and Miles Millar were talking about her character, and she said, I think she should die by suicide just because she's so in love with Charles. The ultimate thing she could do is to join him in the afterlife. They both thought it was a great idea, but felt like a weird well to go down in a comedy to have a main character die by suicide towards the end of the movie. They brainstormed what would be a more creative, bizarre way that she could die that was an accidental death. So they got to the idea of the asps, which they really loved. And I think it was a fitting death, too, for her, at least somewhat. It does come kind of out of nowhere, but it would be her own hubris of, like, oh, yeah, of course they're defanged. Why wouldn't they be defanged? You know, like this idea that they're not going to kill me. They're whatever. They're just snakes. And that's what kills her. Her part of her art, like she was going to hold them or something. It was like a part of the photography or something. I don't know, but it's like she says with like her art. This is her art. It's dangerous, or it's gonna kill her or something. Remember in the first one she says something like that, and I think it's fitting that her art like ended up killing her. Beyond just the two films, Beetlejuice has expanded to other media types due to the financial success of the film. A Beetlejuice animated television series was created for ABC, targeting children and tweens. The series ran for 4 seasons, with the final season airing on Fox from September 9th, 1989 to December 6th, 1991. Tim Burton served as the show's developer and executive producer. Notably in the series, the character's name is consistently pronounced as Beetlejuice, like Beetlejuice, the way that we know it, like beetle, like the animal, and juice, like the drink. So shifting away from the adult-oriented film, the series reimagines Lydia as a tween rather than a teenager, and portrays Beetlejuice as a friendly prankster she summons through her bedroom mirror. Instead of the afterlife, this version of Beetlejuice resides in the Netherworld, a fantastical land filled with monsters reminiscent of Burton's Halloween Town. Although he calls himself the ghost with the most, this Beetlejuice is depicted not as a former human, but as a creature born in the Netherworld, with similarly quirky parents appearing in several episodes. He also has a younger, more popular brother named Donnie, who admires Beetlejuice while avoiding his negative traits. The series relies heavily on pun-based humor and visual gags, showcasing Beetlejuice's ability to transform into various monsters, people, and objects. A central theme is the close friendship between Lydia and Beetlejuice, with the duo frequently finding themselves in situations where they must rescue each other from danger. A recurring plot involves Lydia summoning Beetlejuice to the real world to help her navigate challenges, particularly with her rivalry with the school queen bee, Claire Brewster. While Beetlejuice genuinely cares for Lydia, his selfish and chaotic nature often leads to disasters before he ultimately helps set things right. In 2016, work began on a Broadway adaptation of Beetlejuice, directed by Alex Timbers and produced by Warner Brothers. The musical features music and lyrics by Eddie Perfect, with a book by Scott Brown and Anthony King. Initial reading starred Christopher Fitzgerald, with Chris Kukul as musical director and Connor Gallagher as choreographer. The musical premiered at the National Theater in Washington, D.C. for a limited engagement from October 14th to November 18th, 2018, with Alex Brightman in the title role. Originally set to conclude with its run at the Winter Garden on June 6, 2020, the production faced challenges due to the COVID-19 Broadway shutdown in March 2020, which hindered efforts to secure another theater. The show reopened at the Marquee Theater on April 8, 2022, but ultimately closed on January 8, 2023, at a financial loss, having failed to recoup its $21 million investment. Despite this, subsequent productions have launched around the world, including a North American national tour. Now, I was in New York in 2019, October 2019, and Beetlejuice was playing, and I really wanted to go see it. Although my sister, who's she's more of a theater file. I don't know what you'd call it. She's into theaters and plays and all that, and musicals and all that. Where I'm into film and stuff. She was like, "Oh, I don't know. I heard nothing but bad things about it, and this and that." And she was like, "Oh, go see it," but then she kind of dragged it and stuff. So I didn't end up seeing it, but then little as we saw more and more, like, it was like, I should have just gone to see it. I should have just foregone what she was saying and just gone and watched it. I kind of like kicked myself because I'm like, I was right there right before COVID when it was like it had not just premiered, but it was like in its like early days or whatever, still in New York on Broadway. I could have gone to see it. Oh, I'm so mad with myself. Now we move on to the part of the podcast where I get into my final thoughts on the films. All right, so the original Beetlejuice, I'd say, is probably a classic. I remember watching it a lot as a kid. I love the part with the songs, like when they're getting possessed and they're doing the "Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana." That part. That part's hilarious. All the characters. Michael Keaton's great in it. Like, I think when you let certain actors do like things that are a little bit different, because he wasn't really known. That's more for like Batman, but he was more known for to be comedic, to be in like these like different, like more like serious roles. And I think letting him be in like Beetlejuice and Batman really showed like the range that he could get within like the span of a couple of years, and just goes to show like honestly he should have won for best actor for Birdman, but that's neither here nor there. And I think Winona Ryder does a great job. Catherine O'Hara obviously always great. Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, they have great chemistry together. You can just they feel like they've been together for a while, like maybe since like high school. Like they feel like they've been together for a long time. I love that they have like this like quaint house on the hill type of thing, and they live in this like little tiny like village-esque town, and like there's just like the one road through, and everybody like just lives off of that strip. But I just love the idea of combining like taking this like German expressionism that you'd see in like the Cabin of Dr. Caligari, and you put it in like this kind of like I would say it's closer to like a Ghostbusters, like you're mixing those two worlds together, and you're creating something that just visually different, visually distinct. Like Tim Burton I think at least what I've seen is like he has a good eye for like, when he creates these like worlds, it's just so distinct. It's just so unique. It's just you're never gonna see it again unless you watch like other Tim Burton films. I feel like he really brings that back in his films, and it's a good, just like short, family film, like family, like I'd say like more older kid, like teenager, around there, film. Like I said, like everyone's good. The direction's good. The acting's good. The art direction is amazing. The only bad thing is, when we'll get to it, but in between films, is we find out that the guy who plays Charles, Jeffrey, whatever his name is, he doesn't even deserve to be named properly. He's a pedophile and on a sex offender list, because he's a horrible, horrible human being. And honestly, let's get into Beetlejuice, the sequel, where I think they continue the law of like that look, that feel, that world. It still feels like it's there. It still feels like it's like we're still exploring it. I love that they were able to bring it back in such a great way. I love that I love the new characters like Justin Theroux and Willem Dafoe, Monica Bellucci. I know a lot of people were a little, kind of like, well, why is she even in here? Like, she didn't really do anything. That's not really the point. The point is that she was meant to seem like the main villain, but she wasn't the main villain. It was actually that one kid, Jeremy. He's actually the main villain. And I love that it's actually set on like Halloween, and you get that vibe and that feel. But also, Jeffrey Jones. We get a funeral for him, which he doesn't deserve. We see like the stop motion of him getting eaten by the shark, which honestly is more than what he deserves. But then like his character pops up, and honestly, like his headless character pops up here and there. Honestly, I think it would have been better. This is like my only thing with the film, because everything else is pretty fine. Like everything, maybe here or there, you could have like streamlined a little bit. But I don't even think streamlined is the word. I think maybe you could, honestly, if you made it a little bit longer, I think that's maybe what it would have been a little bit better. But anyways, having his character pop up headless, like at the dry cleaners, or just like showing up in line at the, trying to like get to talk to somebody, just ridiculous. They should have just cut that out and literally left it up to the very end, when Delia's getting to the train, and then show him there maybe, and like being like, oh, Charles, and then they get on the train and leave. Like that's it. That's all you needed to show. I feel like they showed more of him than they needed to, and ridiculous. But love that we got like a backstory to Beetlejuice. Love that Monica Bellucci's in it. I love Monica Bellucci. I love that Danny DeVito has like a little part, and he's great in that little role that we get. Like I said, Willem Dafoe. The guy, he's from Torchwood. I can never remember his name, but he plays the priest, and even that little part is pretty funny. And I love when like they do the musical number at the end with MacArthur Park. It's hilarious, and I think it's fitting for, like how do you top Deo or like what's the other song? The one at the very end of Beetlejuice. Like how do you top those? You get what's his name? Richard Harris singing MacArthur Park, and you have this huge cake and everyone's dancing and stuff. It's hilarious. And like I said, I love that they expanded on the world. I love that they didn't try and bring Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin back and try and de-age them, because it just wouldn't work. And because like even Tim Burton said, no matter how much de-aging you try and makeup, it's just not gonna look like what they're not gonna look like what they used to. Especially I think because Alec Baldwin's been in a lot of like controversy lately. I don't think he's been in anything since the one where he shot that guy or shot the gun went off or whatever. And I like that they gave a reason why they're not in, like the Maitlands are not in this one. And I like that like it moved on from them. And like that's why I'm like with the third one, I feel like you could move even further on as long as you stick with Lydia. I think Lydia is what's the core of these films. And like the Maitlands were outside of that. And like the stuff with like Astrid and stuff was outside of that. And I think you could really bring it back around with like something else. Like I said, like maybe if you just did like a 10 episode or 8 episode, 12 episode season of like just a mini series or a limited series for like Beetlejuice and like maybe like Beetlejuice and Lydia or something, or you call it Beetlejuice. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty fine. I think, or even if we got a third one. Michael Keaton says he's down. I feel like Tim Burton's like reinvigorated into like directing with this because he's had like a string of like not so great films. I mean, Wednesday was okay for being a show on Netflix, but I don't think he's had anything like crazy since a while ago. Maybe I want to say maybe Big Fish. Was Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, was that after that? I don't remember. But, wait. Alice in Wonderland was a pretty sizable hit. But after that, I don't think he had too many good, like... I know Big Eyes didn't do too good. Dumbo didn't do too good. I like Dumbo, though. I thought it wasn't too bad, but I know a lot of people were like, Dumbo, that movie was so ridiculous, so stupid. Whatever, just because you guys don't have a heart. But I think, I feel like this could really reinvigorate him and get him to like maybe, I don't know, give us another Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't know, something like that. I don't know. These are both great movies, especially around the October spooky season right now. I saw Beetlejuice twice, so I saw Beetlejuice. Back to back. No, it was pretty good. It was really good. I like that, even after 30 plus years, they could still make something solid. So I think I'm going to give Beetlejuice, both of them, 4 stars. Yeah. They're both solid films on their own and together. Do you need a bio-exorcist? Have you read your copy of the handbook for the recently deceased? Would you die for Monica Bellucci? I most definitely would. We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. Do you have any personal or fictional paranormal, supernatural, or unexplainable stories? We love to read them on the podcast. Please send your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show more support, you can follow on our socials on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok @horrorboxpodcast. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It really helps out. Until next time, Beetlejuice. This is Dom, signing off from the Horrorbox.
You know what's really beautiful about this? You two kids picked me. You didn't have to, but you picked me. It makes me want to kiss you guys. Come on.
No, give me one. Come on. All right, let's get down to business. You're right. I got a card around here somewhere. Here. Who do I have to kill? Here, hold that for me, would you? There.
Whoa!
There you go.
You don't have to kill anybody.
Possession. Good. Learn to throw your voice. Fool your friends. Fun at parties.
No, we just want to get some people out of our house.
I understand. Well, look, in order to do that, I'm really going to have to get to know you guys. We got to get closer. Move in with you for a while. Get to be real pals. You know what I'm saying? Save that guy for later. Huh?
My wife and I would like to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure. Go ahead, shoot.
Well, for instance, what are your qualifications?
Well, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I travel quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague, and I had a pretty good time during that. I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy. Now, what do you think? You think I'm qualified?
What I mean is, can you be scary?
Oh, I know you're asking me. Can I be scary? What do you think of this? You like it?
Excuse us, please.
Sure, talk amongst yourselves.
Adam, let's go.
I know, Barbara, honey, but I think he could be of some
No,
use
no,
later
let's
on the road.
work something out ourselves. We just have to talk.
Yeah.
Hey!
Excuse me?
What?
Excuse me. We are leaving now.
Oh, wait. Oh, come on. Don't go yet.
Hey, guy, come on. We're simpatico here. Look at us. Huh, we even shop at the same store. Hey, hermano. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, come on. We're like peas in a pod, the three of us. Let's face it, you want somebody out of the house. I want to get somebody out of your house. Come on. Look, we've been to Saturn. Hey, I've been to Saturn.
Whoa, sandworms. You hate them, right?
I hate them myself. Come on, kids. What do I have to do to strike a deal with you two, huh?